Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Coleman.
No problem. How you guys doing? You guys good? Good. Definitely want to thank the Woodlawn Community Service Corporation for having me here today. I really do appreciate it. It's an honor to be here. Thank you to Ms. Murchison for the invite. It's always a blessing hearing the good things you guys are doing in the community. And I hope to be able to emulate some of the things you guys have done over the last 50 years. So thank you. I really appreciate you guys having me. Growing up in Fort Worth, Texas, my father, he actually studied the Woodlawn organization. The impact this organization has made has been studied for 50 plus years. An impressive 1,000 miles away from Chicago, it's being studied because he learned about it in high school in Fort Worth, Texas. So that's super impressive. The impact this organization has made has been felt all across the world. As a Chicagoan, I've always been fond of the name the Woodlawn Community Service Corporation because the name indicates that people take the development of their community just as serious as they do a business, and I think that's definitely necessary. In this organization, people are putting their skills to use towards things that actually matter. They're making investments in our youth in the future, and those are altruistic acts, and by making these investments, in the future, they're going to get a greater return than they can ever get on the NASDAQ, right? In fact, I always tell people instead of talking about options and futures on the stock exchange, we're making a greater impact by giving teenagers options and investing in their future, right? Like we have to get to the heart of the problems if we want to solve them. We can't solve these big economic issues without first addressing the social issues that are causing the problems, right? You wouldn't pay your mortgage with a credit card, nor would you try to pound your way out of violence, right? So we have to meet these issues head on and address the causes, not the symptoms, right? The Woodlawn organization's founding president, Reverend Arthur Brazier, he was an advocate for black self-determination, right? Back then, the residents had to deal with dishonest store owners, slum landlords, and overcrowded segregated school systems, right? They needed to find their voice as a community and their self-determination to take a stand, and he was able to help with that. Along with Saul Alinsky and Dr. Finney, the Woodlawn organization was able to mobilize Woodlawn residents into action against injustices they face daily. Now, how do you mobilize against injustices in the 1960s when there's no Twitter, there's no Facebook, there's no LinkedIn, no constant contact, no text messaging? How do you mobilize a community like that? They did it, right? They did. They organized rent strikes and they created public campaigns against grocery store owners that were overcharging their customers, right? They aim to hold these store owners, these school officials, and these slum landlords publicly accountable for their actions. By making these issues public, they were more effective because now in the eyes of the public, these people had to be accountable. Backdoor deals can be made, but they're not likely to be enforced if don't nobody know about them. Right? Agreements and promises that are made in the public, they carry more weight because people will go to great lengths to protect their public image or their brand. And you guys remember I told you that because today we're facing the same issues. Right? It's just the same garbage, but with a different smell. There's a 47% unemployment rate amongst African American men and women between the ages of 16 and 19 in Chicago. The high school graduation rate of African American men in Chicago is 35%. These statistics are atrocious, right? Atrocious. We can't continue to ignore the correlation between a poor education and unemployment because they're directly related, right? When I think of what must be done, I think we need to mobilize our youth in the same way that the Woodlawn organization mobilized Woodlawn residents. We need to energize them with new ideals that'll make a lasting impact in their future. We need to broaden their horizons so they can look around and say, you know what, things aren't supposed to look like this. Right? It's my hope that through my organization, Role Model Movement, and through My Block, My Hood, My City, I can introduce Chicagoans to a new future that holds possibilities and opportunities right here in their own city. Right? You'd be surprised how many worldviews are shaped by a block or a hood. It's people that drive down Lakeshore and they see Lake Michigan, they say, what ocean is that? What ocean is that? Just like, think about it, if you were from a farm town in Nebraska, someone would see you in Chicago and be like, that he ain't from around here, he's from a farm town. It's the same thing when you see somebody from Inglewood downtown, you say, man, this person's they're not from around here, why not? Because their whole worldview has been shaped by a few blocks or a few hoods. We need to broaden their horizons and let them take ownership of the city. When I start thinking about the unemployment rate amongst black youth, I think about the Woodlawn organization and how they just didn't sit back and hope things could change. They weren't like, oh, I hope things are going to change today, right? They didn't wait for the manna to fall from the skies of City Hall. They took action to create the future that they wanted, right? They were able to secure a grant. In the 1960s, they secured a grant. I don't know how, it's 501c3 organizations today with technology in place today that can't secure grants. But the Woodlawn organization, they secured a grant in the 1960s from the Office of Economic Opportunity, and they started a job training program for unemployed youth. And what's awesome is they insisted that the job training facility be located in the community and that members of the community be hired as instructors, right? This program, it drew a lot of criticism because it dealt with the structures of Chicago's most notorious gangs, right? But in principle, I think their mission was sincere, and it makes a lot of sense. If you want to reach students nowadays, you have to reach them where they're at instead of expecting them to come meet you. Like, a curriculum has to be created around the student instead of teaching everybody to the same test. I'll give you an example. A student that just comes into the country from Mexico, he can't be expected to learn at the same rate as a student from Chatham, Woodlawn, or Inglewood. A different curriculum that's created around the student that takes into account their background and their experiences, that needs to be created to engage that student, right? If you know they like basketball and you want to talk about physics, talk about how tall is D Rose? How high is the basketball hoop? The basketball, how you doing? How you doing? It's all right. The basketball hoop, so he's ready to learn. He's thirsty to learn. But the basketball hoop is 10 feet tall. How much force does D Rose have to generate to dunk that basketball? You see, a curriculum has to be created around the student to engage them instead of one curriculum for all, right? Now, we have to take some kind of action to secure the future that we want, right? And when I think of the Woodlawn organization, like I said, I think the Woodlawn Community Service Corporation is still doing great things. But we need to take action to secure the future we want. When people say Jahmal, they say, hey, how do I secure a more prosperous future? I say we don't need to look any further than the past. Like, they always say that you can't know where you're going unless you know where you've been, right? Okay, so the Woodlawn organization is a perfect example of that, right? The rubric that they laid down is they have the solutions to the symptoms of oppression that we're facing in these Southside communities. Because the problems that we're going through right now are not new, right? These problems are not unique to today's society. They've been around for a while. They've showed their fangs for 50 plus years, right? And the solutions are just as applicable today as they were 50 years ago, right? Well, the solutions that were, give you an example, like penicillin is still used to cure bacterial infections. The solutions that were laid down by the Woodlawn organization can still be used to cure our communities of the disease of hopelessness that some people say is incurable. It can be effective against the plague of joblessness for those that think they're unhireable, and it can quell an outbreak of uneducated for those that absolutely need to be taught, right? The Woodlawn organization, what I'm trying to say is they laid down the blueprint, like Jay-Z's album. They laid down the blueprint of what we need to do to take back our communities, right? And so we need to, instead of creating all these new ideas, we can look right to the past to figure out what must be done. They showed us how self-determination is critical when you're fighting injustices. And they did all this stuff with no social media. It's because of organizations like the Woodlawn Community Service Corporation that my company, Role Model Movement, is able to have hope that we can actually make a difference in Chicago, and hopefully we can make an impact as far as 1,000 miles away. Now, I wanted to get that out the way because I just so appreciative.